Hello, everybody. This is Bart Sharp and Becoming Quantum Conscious on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, UPRN, at 107.7 and 103.5, broadcasting out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. And we are also on Roku cable television. You can check us out live and see how beautiful we really are. Or you can go to the UPRN website, YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms out there to catch into this show, or just simply hear us on the radio out of New Orleans. But I am not out of New Orleans. I'm out of Austin, Texas, which is quite beautiful out today. We're the envy of the United States, I suppose, with all of this warm, clear, sunny weather, just perfect for getting out there and getting a suntan. So today we have Paul Hubbard out of Holographic Sound Healing. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks, Bart. Great to be here.
Yeah, I've known Paul for quite a while, and you've been doing sound healing uh, forever. I mean, you took it in 20, 30 years ago.
I actually began in 1991.
Wow.
So it's been a while.
Right when the new age was starting up
Yeah,
and we were all experimenting, and you got into sound healing.
I did.
And what brought you? What started that sequence?
Well, my background is in psychology, and I worked with families and addictions for many years. And in 1991, I got a message from Spirit. And the message was, if you don't start using your voice, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. And I
Wow.
thought, well, God, it terrified me, to take that kind of a leap. But I did, and just got on the path.
Yeah, yeah. And you've been on it. Of course, Paul is in North Austin, and I am in South Austin. But he has been a leader in the community here, but also worldwide. You told me that you are preparing to go to South Africa to teach classes there.
I am. I've got two trainings coming up in April of this year, one in Johannesburg and one in Cape Town. And it's a certification training teaching people how to specifically use sound holographically or multidimensionally, it's a very unique approach to sound healing.
Well, that sounds really intriguing to say sound healing multi-dimensionally. Can you give us a little bit more juicy information on that?
Sure. Um, the holographic sound, it's very specific in that it's different than other sound healing modalities and experiences, in that we take and we blend sound with sacred geometry. And the
Hmm.
sacred geometry actually opens the sound up into its multidimensional form. And so in doing that, we hit every level of consciousness. Nothing's left unturned. So it's extremely powerful, and it's actually been around for a long time, but has been underground until around 1999. And that's when it resurfaced.
Hmm. Yeah, well, so much was just being discovered in those beautiful 1980s and 1990s of the New Age movement of different modalities. We were
True.
trying new things, but uh,
And
they
we
just
were
weren't
we were
enough.
very woo-woo called back then.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Now we're almost mainstream.
exactly. I never hear the millennials in Austin talk about woo woo. It doesn't seem to be part of their vocabulary.
No, they got to skip over that one.
Yeah, yeah, because I meet all kinds of people in Austin that have taken your courses, and you use crystal bowls
I do.
for yours.
I do. See,
And
one of the beauties is that in the holographic sound, I teach about using the voice for healing purpose, along with the geometries. And the thing about the voice is that it's the most powerful instrument that we have available to us. I mean, there's virtually no limitation as to what we can do. It's a living instrument. And that's the beauty also of the crystal bowls, is that they're living energies. It's a living instrument because the crystal, it grows,
mm,
it shifts, it changes. And
wow,
that's, I mean, we can't, not that you can apply the holographic sound utilizing any instrument, but these two are top of the list, either the voice or the crystal bowls or a blend of both.
wow. And when you talk about your sacred geometry, do you put sacred geometry underneath the bowls or is it behind you like in a big diagram? How does that work?
Well, Bart, you'll have to come to the workshop to find that out.
Okay.
Now, it's more than that. I mean, that's something that you can do, but it's also a visualization of specific geometries, and then adding the sound into that vision and into um, that matrix of energy.
Hmm. Okay. Well,
Should I sign you up?
yeah, I need to. I've I'm starting to get more into the sound healing. You
Yeah.
know, and but I've been using tuning forks,
Uh huh.
but and they're really great. I like them.
They are.
There's benefits with that, but with the crystal bowls, there's a lot of technique in it that there's a big difference between uh, someone that's done it for a long time. I have a friend in France. I want to give her a part, Michaela O'Driscoll out of Keon, France. She's a nice English woman. She's been on the show. She's also a naturopathic doctor. That's where she comes on. She's like, you can ask the doc any health questions. I'll be bringing her back in April or May when
Yeah.
I'm in France. However, the artistry in playing the bowls is just amazing to behold.
Well, thanks. And there are techniques to using the bowls. You can simply start out and just gonging the bowls, or dinging them, or gently playing them, and but there's so many different nuances that you can use to create different aspects of the sound. And again, blending. I tell you, there's nothing like taking and utilizing the voice and then blending the bowls into it, or vice versa, beginning with the bowls and then blending the voice into the collaboration with the crystal bowls, because they work beautifully together.
Mm, they do. Before we go on, I just want to invite people. If you have questions for Dr. Paul, Paul is a doctor, a PhD, um, and I did not announce him that away. Uh,
It's
but
okay.
please bring him up. This guy has been doing sound healing, sound work, teaching classes, selling bowls, doing performances forever. As long as he was a seasoned pro when I met him 20 years ago. So guy's been around the block. We won't say how long he's been around the block, but we'll just say
Well,
he's been around the block.
and same for you, Bart.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
No,
Anyway,
no.
uh, so there's one thing, I do shamanic work. And as I have explored deeper into this journey, it always seems like my voice is so important and that that's the deep things inside of my sacral knowledge, like knowledge that I intuitively know about the world,
Hmm.
vibrational knowledge that when the vibration gets activated, a different form of wisdom starts to come into my voice and my healing energies start to change. And it always seems to come around my voice,
Yeah.
like in my throat area, energetically. And when I muscle test this, there just seems to be this connection.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about how that experience is for you?
Well, so many people are, when it comes to the throat, so many people are blocked there. And my experience, that much of that is coming from past life,
Mm,
because back, hundreds of years ago, and, occasionally we may still see it, but particularly hundreds of years ago, I know I've experienced past lives where I've lost my head.
how
I've
pleasant.
been do what?
How pleasant.
Oh, I know, I
Oh,
know. I mean, at least it's quick if they know what they're doing. Um, but and had been persecuted in multiple ways over different lifetimes. And so what we do to protect ourselves in this lifetime is we place blocks in our throats, and it causes us to um, it just protects us.
mm,
It's an old fear in a current time. And the thing is that old fear is not it's not realistic for this lifetime now. And so, part of the work that I do as well is assisting people in dissolving whatever those blocks are so that they can begin to open up more and more. And a lot of times people will, in this lifetime, develop experiences where they continue to reinforce that blockage. Like I've run into people, men and women, where family members will criticize them for using their voice. You know, um, it's like, oh, please stop singing. That is terrible. Or as children are to be seen and not heard.
yes.
And all kinds of stuff like that. And that just reinforces those old blocks.
It really reinforces the idea that you change the vibration in your thoughts and your what you say do change, or it's open to change. You
Yeah,
still have to break the habit, like if you're gonna not be an alcoholic, you're gonna no longer go to the refrigerator for a beer.
right, right.
But
Uh,
it does open. You open that stuff up.
yeah, and that's imperative because I just did a training a couple weekends ago here in Austin, Texas, and I had 28 people at the training, and half of them, and maybe more than half even, have that resistance within their throats, within their voices. And so that's one of the first things that we begin to go through to shift, to dissolve that. It's like acknowledging and recognizing that it has served a purpose for us for many, many years, but that purpose it's no longer useful for us. It's time to let it go and move forward.
Mhm. Yeah. How do you find that out that you see that so many people are blocked when you're in a class like that?
You ask them, and they tell you. Because when they start understanding more about what they're going to be doing in the training, it's like, oh no, you mean I'm going to have to use my voice?
Wow.
So when we get to that point, it's like, well, yeah, because it's the most powerful instrument that you have available. So why do we not utilize it? And besides that, if you're ever going anywhere, you've always got it. You don't have to
Exactly.
carry something else with you. It's there with you all the time.
That's wonderful. Had the bowls made your voice stronger, through this process? I mean,
They actually do. Um, the bowls will help to give a baseline that you can use as you blend the voice in.
hmm,
So it's kind of like a supportive friend, you know?
mhm. I guess it would have a lot of applications too. So if I was a salesperson and I was doing holographic sound
Hmm.
and singing, I might have a just a better voice that might be more powerful, therefore more convincing to make sales or something like that.
Well, that's true. Absolutely. Any way you can reinforce your voice, it's going to help you in every aspect of your life,
Wow.
bar none. Um, one of the things that I talk about a lot in the training and give some very basic techniques, and that's doing and exercising your voice
Hmm.
because your vocal cords and throat, your body, how you bring out sound, it's it's using various muscles that if they're not strengthened or warmed up, you're not going to get as good a result. It's like if you're a skier and you go up on the hill and you don't stretch first, and I've experienced this personally. If I don't stretch first before I go up on the hill to ski, I'm exhausted after one run.
Mm.
First time down, it's like I've got to go sit down and rest for a while. If I stretch first, then I'm good for the whole day. And it's the same thing with the voice. If we will warm the voice up and stretch those muscles out, and what's really beautiful about that is that we feel better about ourselves. Because when we vocalize, it's like, oh, I don't sound so bad after all. You know, because we've warmed up, and it's just and we're more precise with the tones that we create. Um, the tones don't go flat or get muddy and stuff like that. It's like we've just got more, it's like a greater sense of control over what our voice is doing.
Wow.
And when we're able to do that, then we're able to give spirit, the divine, the universal consciousness, more room to work with, you
Wow.
know?
Do people that are professional musicians and singers come to your classes just to
Abs-
improve their
yeah,
voice?
well, yeah, absolutely. Not just to enhance their voice, but to learn more about particularly the how to blend the voice and the geometries. Because a musician can take the geometries and utilize the whole experience and the techniques in gigs, in their performances with their instruments, and it further enhance the entire experience and with the audience
Wow.
because they can further energize the audience with the geometries and the experience of holographic sound. So it's very multifaceted as to how we can utilize this energy.
Yeah. Yeah. When I saw you, this is a few years ago, you were doing a performance in a church
Uh-huh.
and you were summoning in angels.
I
Uh,
was
that
and do
still do.
still do. Those
How,
guys those guys are helpful, they're good. I also work with a group of masters, fifth dimensional beings known as the Hathors.
yes.
And these are extraterrestrials. You may have talked about them in other shows or something, but these guys are amazing. They're known as masters of sound and love. And they're in such pure, beautiful balance. And a little known, actually, it's becoming more known now, but they were very revered in early Egypt. I mean, there are many sculptings in Egypt in the temples of the Hathors, and the presence and um, their interaction with the other deities like Isis and Horus. And in fact, the goddess Hathor, who is she's like a representative or the ambassador in a sense of the race of beings known as the Hathors.
Hmm.
And that deity and Isis were like um, like best friends, you know.
Yes, yes. I always had the feeling that they were more extraterrestrial as opposed to being a god or a goddess.
Oh yeah, they are definitely. It's a little misunderstanding, I think, in those early Egyptian days that because they were so much more elevated than the average person, they looked upon them as gods or goddesses. But
Yeah,
truly, they're extraterrestrials that have a sense of physical and spiritual technology far beyond what we understand.
yeah, yeah. And this is just so it's beyond coincidental. You've been a tour guide for many, many years in Egypt,
I
going to
have.
sacred sites. Um, what is some of the evidence that you've seen with Egypt and sacred sites and
Well,
healing?
in 1999 is when I led my first group to Egypt, and it was pivotal because my return from that first trip, that's when and I've been working with these guys, the Hathors, for several years, but they really stepped out after that first trip to Egypt, and they much of the holographic sound work was downloaded through them and through some of the other ascended masters and archangels,
Wow.
and that's where the holographic sound work came from, is through these guys, you know.
So they kind of opened you up to this reality by being at these sites. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. It was pivotal for me. And the sites, you know, people think they've gone to Cairo and see the pyramids and they've seen Egypt. Not at all. Not at all. And I'm sure you can understand that too with the work you do with Mary Magdalene. You know, it's like you go one place and you think you've experienced it, and it's like, no, no way. The temples are off the charts, phenomenal. I mean, the energy's there, the experience is there. That's where people really connect, is in the temples. And the trips, I always include a 4 day, 4 night cruise on the Nile. You know,
Wow.
so we're cruising the Nile and we dock every day and go out and visit different temples. And then we come back and we can assimilate some of our experience. And I always will do, I always take a few crystal bowls with me, and we do sound meditations in the specific temples. And it's extraordinary. I mean, I guarantee, and I always tell this to everyone that goes on the trip, I guarantee you will have a transformation. I guarantee that the you that returns will not be the you that started out. You
Mm.
know, that you will be a new and different person when we return.
The vision I get when you say that is you're not the first person to do that, but they were doing sound activations with various instruments for 10, 20, 30,000 years in these very temples.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And if it's not the very temple, it's the temple that was there prior to the one that's there now. So all the temples are built on vortexes. And the thing about it is that over time, if they're not utilized, the sand comes in and covers them up.
Wow.
And then the next generation or generations of people that come in, they go to the vortex, and it just so happens there's a temple under the sand, and they build another one on top of it. This happened in a temple known as Abydos, And Abydos, originally, that particular temple, it was built by Ramses the First, started by started by Seti the First, and finished by Ramses the Second, his son. And that temple, it's an amazing temple, and beneath that temple is another temple, and that underneath temple, which they refer to as the Osiris, that's where the flower of life is found in Egypt,
Goodness gracious.
is at the Osiris temple, and that dates back to around 11 or 12,000 BC, that temple, the older one.
One could think it could possibly be much older than that.
It could be. It
I
could
mean,
be, but the point is that it dates back to Atlantean times.
yes, it does.
It dates back to those last years of Atlantis, at least. Now,
Yeah.
the Sphinx, even further than that, the Sphinx is about 17,000 BC.
Wow.
So it's been around a while,
Oh, wow.
a while.
Yeah. And that's just amazing stories. Do you ever see? I mean, as I've studied Egypt, which I'm not nearly in your experiences, but I've never seen any evidence of where it began. Like it's just been this continual culture, but nobody knows the origins.
Well, true. There's a lot of lost time. We experienced, that our Earth and consciousness operates on about a 26,000 year cycle, and divided into 5 parts, which are about 5,200 years each. And around that 5,200 year point, there's always some cataclysmic experience that happens on Earth.
Hmm.
And the last one that we experienced was the Great Flood, the stories around Noah.
And that's around 8,000 BC. Is that right?
No, it's not. No, it's not that far back.
Okay.
It's around 4,500 BC.
All right.
And then the one previous to that, which is the final days of Atlantis. And that was a milder ice age that occurred. About half the US was covered in ice at that point.
And do you have a date on that?
Around 11.5 BC,
Okay.
somewhere right around there, around that time. Who knows for sure, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's 5,000
Yeah,
5,000 year window there.
right.
Wow.
So it was around 10 or 11 BC is
Okay.
that ice age. And I mean 10 or 11,000 BC.
Wow.
And those were the last days of Atlantis. And then things kind of went underground. If you go through the Western Desert in Egypt, or um, in the Arabian Desert, you'll find seashells in the sand. That was all ocean at one time.
Indeed. And
And
Sahara was a grassy green field.
yeah, well, after the ocean, yeah,
Yeah.
or
Wow.
before the ocean. I don't know. I don't know.
Just one more question about this. With that is like, so there's a lot of theories about the Egyptians using, or the ETs, maybe both together, a sound vibration to lift those big heavy stones up.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Extraterrestrial technology using sound
Mm,
to move the energies. And when I talk about this particular kind of technology, it's not like the computers and stuff like that we're familiar with. This is more of a what I call spiritual technology, and it's utilizing the elements of the universe
mm,
to create the and manifest the sound in a manner that will move physical uh, pieces,
indeed.
and not just some of the little experiments that we see on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that, where they're making little BBs rise. It's similar, but the thing is it's so much further advanced. I mean, those stones are, we still, I don't believe we can actually recreate the building of a pyramid the way those pyramids are built. The stones themselves would collapse the mechanical pieces that we use to build because they're so heavy. And the crazy thing about it is that they did not even come from around the area where the pyramids are.
Wow.
They those particular stones came from all the way south around a city called Aswan, which is the further one of the furthest parts of the Nile, furthest southern parts of the Nile, and that's where those stones came from.
Wow.
So how did they get them? Are you telling me they put those on boats and floated them up the Nile?
A lot of strong donkeys, yes. No,
Yeah, no kidding. And strong, workers.
yes. Well, we're at the midpoint of the show, and I must tell everybody you are with Dr. Paul Hubbard, sound healer, holographic sound, and you can find his website at, I want to make sure I get this right, holographicsound.com. And you can see all of his classes, tours, all
Eh,
about his life and discoveries. It's really a great website. And you can tell that he's been at this for a while because who would get such a prime website title as holographicsound.com? It's, you're so fortunate. And you are on United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 and 105.3, broadcasting out of New Orleans. And also, we are on Roku. You can see us on cable, YouTube, uh, Facebook, and on the UPRN website. We're available in many places. And my name is Bart Sharp, and the show is Becoming Quantum Conscious. You can find my website at bartsharp.com. It's really quite simple. And so we're just playing with Dr. Paul Hubert, um, Hubbard.
Hubbard, there you go.
It's the French version, by the
Yes.
way, if you're curious, of pronouncing that name.
And
Just
and
talking about
Bart, technically, if you're in France, it would be Hubert.
Hubert, of course. Oh, Paul Hubert, we have on the show today. Yes, uh, yes, we love it. And it's just amazing because you've been doing this tour guide stuff in Egypt and learning so much about that culture, as well as sound healing. Um, so, how do you think that? What are some of the things that in your many years of doing this, of how you've seen people change?
Well, in the many years of doing, I I do multiple things, but the many years of working with sound, I've seen physical change with people, emotional change, transformations of all sorts. I was working with a woman in Vancouver, Canada, and she had been diagnosed to have 4 tumors in one of her breasts. We did a session, and as the ultrasound showed, we dissolved all 4 tumors in one
Wow,
session.
cool.
One session. Now, I don't claim, or it's not smart in
Mhm.
our society to claim that we healed her, but and I don't claim that. It's just interesting in that she had the tumors. We did a session, and then she didn't. So who knows?
Well, I think it's a very good and modest practice to say, I just did the work and I let it go and
Yeah.
I let that person manifest whatever they're going to create from the experience.
And that's truly what happens. Is what we do is we, as practitioners, as holographic sound practitioners, we open the doorways for the person's body to heal itself. We
Indeed.
remind it that it has those perfect vibrations, those perfect frequencies in its memory and its storehouse to call on to heal itself, whether it's physical or emotional. So we're not really healers. That's really, it's a understandable term that we
Yes.
use, but it's not truly what happens. We just open it up and let spirit do the work.
Yes. Yes. We're part of that transformation. And also, you've been doing this for quite a few years. Do you feel like you become a bigger conduit of, you see more transformational changes just through your experience and continual practice?
Um, I feel like like anything, if you continue to practice, you tend to get better at it or have a better understanding of it. And I do believe that that's occurred with me. And my goal is to be able to offer this experience to anybody that's drawn to this type of work, because ultimately the goal is to get it out there because it works. It works in assisting people in transforming into higher consciousness.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what it's all about. So the more I can touch, the more, and I also teach others to teach this work. And that's where that extended effect, that ripple effect will happen.
Indeed. I think it's a new paradigm that we're in, that we are just carriers, and that it's much bigger than us.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
yeah.
in that type of humility, we actually just get more powerful. But when you come back to the humility, you're kind of letting that grandiosity that it can seduce you into go. And you just kind of like, well, I just do sound healing.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. It's true. And it is. And it's exciting. God, it's so amazing to see people transform.
It is.
And I see that in the direct work with people and with groups. I see that in the Egypt journeys. I mean, it just, I mean, it's it's amazing. I'm so grateful to be able to do this work and to be a part of this kind of experience.
Yes. Yes,
It am-
indeed.
it amazes me from where I come from. It's I would have never guessed this. It's a leap.
Can you share a little bit what that was, the before and after life of Dr. Paul Hubbard?
Well, there are multiple chapters in my life. The previous one to this, I was in addictions work, working with families. I used to run treatment programs. I lived in Los Angeles for 17 years and ran programs accordingly. I was we had several hospital programs throughout Southern California, and along the way, after the sound came in, within a few years, I was guided to let that go and to move on, which is what I did. Now, previous to that, when I was much younger, I had my own trials and tribulations. Uh, I was I was into drugs as a teenager and young adult, and I'm not just talking about smoking pot. I mean, it was serious,
Yeah, yeah.
and
But isn't that true with so many healers, that
it
we
well,
step into the other side unconsciously? And at least for me, I was in a very dysfunctional family that was all addicted at some level.
right,
But I chose all of that
yeah,
just so I would get my feet plenty wet in that paradigm, and it gave me the choice of either staying in that boat, in the addiction, or this huge impetus to just jump out and be something else.
Right.
It's always a great motivating force.
True. And it seems for me, everything that I end up working with and teaching about, I've had to experience it first. That's kind of like how the universe works with me. It's like, oh, great, we've got another one.
Yeah.
And to give you an example, I'm also certified in grief recovery. So that's one of my specializing arenas is grief recovery and working with the belief system. And of course, when it comes to grief, I've lost. It's not just losing people. It's I've had to declare bankruptcy back in the 90s.
Mm.
What a loss that was. Relationships, and of course, death. I've lost many family members. And as a result of that, it has catapulted me into resolving my own grief issues. And as a result of that, being able to work with others and
Wow.
assist them in moving through theirs because
Mm.
it's not easy, and it's not something that people particularly want to talk about
Or enjoy
because it's
doing, but we have to.
or enjoy doing because it can be so damn painful,
It
you know?
is, and I think, just in general, as in my work is I always remind people, whatever's in your past, you can boil it down to an energy when you just tune into your body about what it feels like to hold something such as tons of repressed anger or shame that led you to an addictive process. But when you
Right,
get it into that feeling it in a visceral sense, you boil it down to the energy of it, and then you start detaching from those stories that you suffered with. And that to me is the beauty of doing these newer tools, because they do that.
yeah.
Which brings me to another question for you. And if anybody has any questions, we've got about 10, 12 more minutes of the show. You can type that in and Dr. Paul will answer that. But if I was to do a sound healing session, or I was learning it myself in classes, which you teach all over the place, um, and I was dealing with addiction issues, for example, could
Mhm.
I just focus on what that feels like in my body and start doing sound work on it?
Um, yes, you can. It's, a little more involved than that, because we wanna identify more specifics. And in some cases, if someone has tried and tried and tried and they just can't seem to stay clean,
Hmm.
um, then chances are there are some losses or traumas that preceded that laid the groundwork for the beliefs around addiction. See, addiction a lot of times is it's buffering the pain.
Yes,
And it's just a way that we're dealing with our everyday life.
well said.
And so and so you can't here's the beauty around all of that is that there's always something to gain from those experiences. While they may be painful and appear trapping, there's always something once we begin to transcend them or transform them, we've got a plethora of opportunity to learn and to experience and shift our shift our history. It doesn't change the details, but it changes the way that we look at the details.
Indeed. And thank you, Tina Schmidt, for coming in. And I wanted to add to that concept. Uh, I think it takes us more, when we think of the traumas and our repressed emotions, it always kind of intensifies our sympathetic nervous system. And I think things like meditation, sound healing,
Mhm.
deep trauma work begin to teach us how to connect to our parasympathetic nervous system. And thus we start to relax into a deeper, higher evolved state of being.
Right. Right. True. I
Thank you, Tina.
absolutely agree with that.
And Tina Schmidt says, "This is such a great meeting. Hi, Dr. Paul."
Hi, Tina. How are you?
Yeah,
Glad you're here.
yeah, yeah. I think this energy work stuff. I know over the years that I've done it, I just get more and more relaxed into a deeper space inside of myself,
Yeah.
and it is a space. This whole body we have is an energetic space, and just like your title of your website, holographic sound, or www.holographicsoundhealing.com. It's Paul Hubbert, and that's Hubbert, in case you're curious. But
Okay, let me back you up here. It's holographicsound.com.
.com, did I say something else? Well, I'm getting
You
too
did.
excited. I was trying to remember my next thought while I was saying that, and now I can't remember my next thought.
I'm
But it's
sorry.
that relaxed state. That's to me where you break into magic. You
Yeah.
break into this magical being that you truly are. And whenever I experience holographic sound, which is strangely enough more in France than in the United States, thanks to Michaela Driscoll and her sound classes. I rent a room from her, so she has like 15 bowls down in the living room and
Yeah.
plays them regularly and for crowds. And she's on my tour list, or she does sound healing in my room. But they always drop me into such a deep state of relaxation, and something begins to emerge.
Yeah.
And here we have from April. My addiction was like me assimilating. I felt everyone could assume alcohol, and that's just how I felt about it. But I am sober for 8 years and one day. Wow. My last drink was January 29th, 2016. I just want my family that do consume that it's all about you. And if you want to have a good time or a bad time, it's all about you if you want to have a good time or a bad time.
Hmm.
So true.
And thank
And
you.
and having an experience like doing sound healing or energy work or meditation is a good time.
You know, in recovery, I'm also a recovered addict, alcoholic, and have been for many, many years. If I tell you how many years, you'll begin to figure out how old I am. So, but I'll tell you, it's over 35 years. Um, and the thing about in recovery, it's like we're able to stay clean and sober, and that's just the beginning. Then it's about learning how to live in that new state of being. And even in 12-step programs, it talks about venturing out into other aspects that will complement your sobriety,
Yes.
like meditation, like sound healing. If you notice, a lot of the treatment programs these days, they're blending in equine therapy and sound healing now, and all kind of nature stuff. It's not just about these steps anymore, although that is a powerful base, but there's so many other aspects that take us into higher levels of consciousness,
Yes.
and
And
that's what it's all about.
just to clarify, you're talking about the 12 steps of AA, or
I
Alcoholics
am. I
Anonymous.
am.
And
AA, NA,
it's
CA, any of the
yes, and
A's.
Al-Anon, which I have been a member of Al-Anon. Um, yeah, it's almost like a launching pad.
Yeah.
And once you get to that place of freedom that you've learned how to live your life, then all of these great options open up. And it's so interesting. I find that it's usually in areas of service, helping others,
Hmm.
creativity. It's always something that helps you expand. So if you're out there looking to change and you're going, well, I don't want to do, what's right for me, you simply want to listen. If it feels light when you do something, or it feels, or you have more energy, you feel more expansive when you do something, you do more of it.
Yeah, true.
And you got into sound healing and thought, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah, I like this.
Yes. How many
And,
lifetimes have you been a sound healer with
and
Dr. Paul?
well, it started back in Atlantis.
I would believe that wholeheartedly.
Um, yeah, it's been a beautiful experience for
Yes,
sure.
it has. And when we start to acknowledge that we've been these people that have done this, to me, it makes the world a better place. Or it's like being on Earth is really great
Yeah,
because there's all of this variety to do things.
right, right. And we have options.
And
Whether we believe it or not, we have options.
always a choice.
Yeah. And the more we believe it, the more options we have.
Indeed. Indeed. And there's always those negative voices that say, you can't do this. And that's maybe like you get your crystal balls out or something, and you bring another higher vibration into your body, and that negative one has less space to exist.
Yeah. Yeah. We set our intention for whatever our end result is, what it is we want to ultimately experience, and go for it. And don't lose that vision or that imagination. The imagination is the doorway that spirit uses to move into our physical presence, our physical consciousness is
Yes,
through the imagination. Everything is manifest first through the imagination and then into physical being.
indeed. And I've known you for quite some time. And the one thing that I see constant is you're always out there, you're always working, you always have this enthusiasm to do the sound healing. And a lot of the things you've been doing the same way. You have the same crystal bowls,
Uh-huh.
or, of course, you sell it.
Close,
If you want to buy crystal bowls, Paul is a great guy to buy them from.
very unique. I designed my bowls and then have them made to my
Wow.
design.
Yeah. So it's all of this enthusiasm that continually expands. And you've been doing this forever, which, it's more than that. Well, I've been doing this for lifetimes. It's always a choice that you're going to
Mhm.
continue to do something that nurtures you.
True.
Yeah. And so we're coming down to the end of the show. And so I usually give out the end credits, but I ask you a question to think about, and you're going to end the show by answering the question. What message do you give to the people out there listening today? As just a final reminder. And while you think about that, I want to tell everybody that you are with Dr. Paul
Hubbert,
Hubbard.
after all these years,
I know I say it and then I read this and I go, no, it's not Hubbard, it's Hubert.
no,
Okay,
it's not
so
Hubert, it's Hubbert.
it's Hubbard. That's right. So you were with Dr. Paul Hubbard uh, at holographicsound.com. That's where you can find all of his great stuff. And you've spent this beautiful hour on becoming quantum conscious. My name is Bart Sharp. You can find me at bartsharp.com or Mary Magdalene France Tours, which I have one more France tour in September. Otherwise, I'm booked. It's been a very wonderful summer with the tour business. Uh, Also, you are on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3, broadcasting on YouTube, Facebook, and now Roku on cable television and on the UPRN websites all over the world. And thank you so much, Dr. Paul. And what parting words do you have for everybody?
Well, first off, Bart, I want to thank you for having me on the show. It's been a wonderful experience, as
Thank you.
always. Um, my parting words are just realizing that you have a choice, that you are the master of the choices that you make, and know that God, Spirit, the universe will support you every step of the way. And just know that, and always intend for yourself the highest good, no matter what it is. And sometimes it's not always all that pleasant, you know. But the thing is transcending whatever that is will catapult you into your higher vibration.
Mm,
So
indeed.
just keep it up and do your very best to stay forgive when you need to forgive and do your best to stay in balance and harmony and with as minimal judgment of others as possible.
And always give yourself the gift to creating something cool in your life, whether it be holographic sound, shamanism, art, dance, having fun, being a great creator,
Yeah,
loving others.
because you are the creator.
Indeed.
You are the creator of your reality. And the
Wow.
sooner you recognize that, the sooner you'll begin to experience and reap those benefits.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. And we'll see you next week with Shannon Gill with Aquarian Exposition. Are we there yet? Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Bart.
everybody. Bye bye for now.